League Baseball player, Chris Hammond. So you've been a part of 7 Major League Baseball teams. Can you tell us how you fell in love with the game?
Well, I think my dad, whether he knew it or not, I mean, all my brothers played, and he was like the coach of all our teams. And for some reason, he made it fun. And I mean, all my friends wanted to be on our team because my dad, I mean, he made baseball fun. And I think that's what's missing in today's generation of baseball. I don't know too many kids that are having fun like we did.
What are your thoughts on how like the game's changed over the years since when you started?
It really makes me sick to my stomach on how much it's changed. I mean, from hitting to pitching, I mean, to all around. The game is not the basics of baseball. It's either you hit a home run or nobody wants to get a single.
Yeah.
Uh, no, there's no bunting. There's no generating runs through hit and run to button them over with if a guy leads off with a double, the last thing in his mind, I'm going to bunt him over. Yeah, I could talk forever on how the game's changed, and I'm praying that little by little we get back to the way it used to be.
How was it like going from starter to a reliever pitcher? What was that like?
Well, I mean, I was talking to my son just a few nights ago, and we were talking about that. And I think when I came out of college and I got drafted as a pitcher, I feel like every pitcher wants to be a starting pitcher. And when my coach asked me, "Hey, do you mind pitching out of the bullpen?" I go, "Heck no, I don't want to pitch out of the bullpen. That's like a demotion." But when I retired for 2.5 years and I came back to baseball, my agent said that the quickest way back to the major leagues is a lefty out of the bullpen. I go, let's do it. So I went into the bullpen and I pitched 5 years with the Braves, Yankees, A's, Padres, and Reds again. If I had to do it over again, I would jump right into middle relief, and because I really feel like that's the best job in the world, because you're sitting out the bullpen, and there's not a care in the world until that phone rings. When that phone rings around the fifth, sixth, seventh inning, I mean, it's like everybody looks at the phone like, oh no.
Yeah.
But that's the only stress that we have during the whole game is when that phone rings.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, I mean, I could have pitched 20 years in the major leagues, pitching out of the bullpen, and nobody knows who I am. So
If you could re-experience any moment going back to any game in your career, what moment would that be?
um, I think that the most nervous that I've ever been was when the New York Yankees signed me, and the very first game of the year, it was a save opportunity, and I wasn't a closer, and Mariano Rivera was hurt. I mean, not he wasn't hurt, but he was delayed to pitch to start the season, and there was uh, a setup guy that came in to be the closer, and he didn't get the job done, and they called me to come in, and I'm running across the field at Yankee Stadium, going, "Oh my goodness."
This
I mean,
is
they already booed this guy off the field, and I'm coming in, and I'm like, and I ended up getting the save. But the most nervous I've ever been, probably in my career, was when I was running in from Yankee Stadium bullpen to save the first game of the season in 2003.
that's awesome. What was it like? You played for the Red Sox rivalry team. What was it, the experiences being on both sides?
Well, it really wasn't. It really wasn't as drastic when I played for the Red Sox,
Mhm.
just because, man, I was like, I mean, getting my feet wet. I was like I played about 5 or 6, 7 years in the major leagues, and it was just another game. But when I signed with the New York Yankees and we went to Fenway to play Boston, that series compares to no other series that I've ever experienced. I
Yeah.
mean, it was electrifying. This is where me as a Boston Red Sox fan, I threw that out the window because, and this is tragic, because my kids were about 6, 4, and 3, and we're walking down the streets in Boston.
Mm.
And my kids, it's cold back then, and they had their New York Yankee coats on. And these 4 guys were walking toward us, and they started dog cussing my kids for wearing New York Yankee jackets. And I'm like, what? I go, what in the world are you doing? He goes, New York Yankee. I go, I played for the Yankees. And
Yeah.
I played for the Boston Red Sox in 1997.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, shoot, I'm sorry. I go, it's too late. You just ruined my kids. You
Oh
think,
god.
I mean, for wearing a New York Yankee, and from that day forward, I go, I'm not rooting for Boston Red Sox ever again.
In that exact moment, you knew.
Yeah, it's tragic. But they were like, I'm sorry. I mean, they were like hitting themselves.
The tension between two, it's huge.
Oh, it is,
It's big.
and I understand why. But I mean, you can yell at adults. Don't
Yeah,
yell at kids
not
for
the
wearing
kids, yeah. How do you feel about the whole sticky substance situation?
them. I've never in my career used anything. Sometimes I could, the ball might hit the bat, and it had sticky stuff on it. I'm thinking I need a new ball, and
Yeah,
I feel like they're doing the right thing. Every inning you're walking off, and the umpire's checking your glove, checking it.
yeah,
And I feel like, and this is just me. I mean, I think they need to check their wrist and everything, because all they do is check their glove.
yeah.
Whenever I played, I've seen guys put sticky stuff just right on their inside of their, on the bottom part of their wrist. If you use anything besides the rosin bag,
Sunscreen.
I mean, it's cheating.
Yeah.
Sunscreen, and on the opposite side, they do enough to make sure that the hitters aren't cheating. I don't think it's a bad thing, because I think if it'd be different if I did the same. I think, well, I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of like having some substance, but I'm just totally against using any pine tar or sticky substance or sunscreen, like you said. But
Do you think that increases the spin rate?
I'm sure it does. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't.
Yeah,
I- If it'd be different, like I said, if it'd be different if I've used it before and it's really helped me. But I mean, and here's a great story. I came in from the bullpen with Bobby Cox, and he's just working the ball, and he scuffed it with his ring or something. And I'm thinking, I looked at the ball, I go, man, I need a new ball. He goes, what are you talking about? I got that perfect for you. I go, man, I don't even know what to do with this thing. I mean, if any scrape or anything on a ball, I got to get a new ball, because I don't know.
yeah.
But I mean,
Do you think it was the right decision for MLB to ban it mid-season?
I most definitely do. I mean, I think that I think that's one of the things that they put into place that should stay in place. Whatever they can do to help cheating, um, hopefully they stand on that.
Because I saw Ray's pitcher Glass now, he got injured. Do you think that using those substances like increases your injuries and risk of injury?
I don't think. I mean, I don't think.
When you're making those adjustments, like if you make an adjustment to your pitch, do you think that will increase your chance of getting injured?
No,
No.
I think you'll get injured. I mean, whether you're using any kind of substance or not.
What pitch is more like hard on the arm? Would you say?
I think the slider is
Slider.
more does more has more torque on your elbow than any other pitch. I've seen a lot of, I played with a lot of guys who threw a split finger. And if you really throw that a lot, that that's really drastic to your arm.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think too many guys throw that a lot enough to be as drastic as a slider, because I threw my slider a lot. In the long run, if you don't get your, like you were talking earlier, if you don't get your arm in shape to throw a slider or a
Yeah.
curveball or whatever, I mean, you're heading down the wrong road.
Do you have any tips to prevent Tommy John surgery?
Just lightweight drills to keep your entire arm, shoulder exercises, wrist curls, and just like we were talking earlier, I don't feel like too many guys get their arm in shape like you're supposed to. I was talking to a dad the other day, and I just asked him. I go, "Well, how does your son get? I mean, does he just start spinning the curveballs or spinning the sliders or whatever? How's he get his arm in shape?" And he's like, "I don't know." And I go, that's really that's a tragic answer, because I don't know if there's a pitcher out there that gets their elbow and their shoulder ready to hammer curveballs or sliders. And I go, here's what I did. I mean, I lived out in the country. I didn't have anybody to throw to. I had a big bag of balls that had about 120 balls in it. And I'd pick up a ball and I'd start throw. I mean, I'd throw about 30 balls the first day. Yeah, I'd throw them about 30 feet,
30
just
feet.
nice and easy. Just getting my arm loose. Next day, 30. Next day, and I'd throw about 10 days in a row. I'd throw about 30 to 50. And then I'd start backing up. And then I'd probably throw about 2.5, 3 weeks in getting my arm in shape. And then
Yeah.
I'd start spinning curveballs. I would throw them as slow as I could. I would spin about 15 curveballs. Next day, 15 more. Next day, 15 more. And then after about 10 days, then I start throwing them just a little bit harder, a little bit harder. And then about 3 weeks into that, my elbow's not in shock when I throw a curveball, because I mean, it's used to throwing just that spinning
Repetition.
motion. And whenever I'm talking to a parent or a kid about how I did that, they're like, I don't even do it like that, because it's so easy, because they walk out to practice and they're like, "Hey Johnny, you know how to throw a curveball?" He goes, "Yeah, you want me to see?" And he just hammers a curveball, and he's like, grabs his
Arm
arm, is
after.
like, man,
That hurt.
yeah, because our kids aren't trained on getting their arm in shape.
So you say power is not that important when you're first starting those curveballs. It's more like getting the technique down.
Right, right. It's training your elbow and your shoulder, that you're going to start throwing something
Something.
that doesn't feel good to your arm. Our arm is not meant to throw overhanded. I mean
Yeah.
that's just an unnatural position of doing anything. And now you're yanking curveballs down, and you're throwing sliders, and it's going, what are you doing? But it's just like if you throw a lobster in a pot of boiling water, it will jump right back out.
Yeah.
But if you sit there and let the water get turned up little by little, little by little, you cook him and you eat him. He doesn't realize he's getting boiled. And your arm is the same way. If you start spinning those curveballs, it's as light as you can, and then little by little, after a couple of weeks, it's used to it.
You were
I
known
don't
for
think
your changeups. Why was that so special? Why was your changeup so special?
um, I could throw my changeup anywhere from 58 to 72 miles an hour, and
Wow.
I don't understand how I figured out how to throw my changeup, but for the 18 years that I played in the major leagues, nobody ever threw their changeup like me. And it was special because, like I said, most pitchers' changeups are the same, give or take 1 mile an hour.
Yeah.
And I could throw my change. Aaron Boone, Brett Boone in Seattle. I threw Brett Boone 7 changeups in a row,
7.
and then I buried the harder I stomped my foot, and I pushed it out, the slower it was. So I'd throw one 72 miles an hour, and the next one would be 61 miles an hour. The next one would be 70 miles an hour. The 8th pitch, I threw an 83-mile-an-hour fastball right down the middle, and he didn't even swing at it, struck him out. The way I changed speeds on my changeup was like there's something that
Something
I mean
extra.
nobody's ever heard of.
So this Clutch Baseball Academy is starting in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, and you're going to be a pitching instructor. What mechanics are important to instill in these young athletes?
Well, the thing that I stress the most, I mean, I don't know how to build a kid's arm up for velocity. I'm
Yeah.
more of the mental breakdown, and I mastered the off speed. And if I can help a kid master a curveball, master a slider, and master the changeup, it'll take a lot of pressure on how hard you're throwing. It's hard to tell a kid that, or even their parents, um, how important it is to learn how to throw a good curveball or a slider or a changeup. Because when you look at Major League Baseball, it's like, how hard are you throwing? If
Yeah.
if you don't throw 95, we just scratch you off the list. And I'm thinking, oh, that's the hardest part for me when I'm training or working with a kid. It's like, I know it's hard to not worry about how hard you're throwing, and that's the thing I'm gonna struggle with, because I mean, I don't care how hard you throw. If you master the changeup, if you master the
Yeah.
slider, if you master the curveball, I mean, your 85-mile-an-hour fastball is going to look 95,
If it works, it works.
right? But most kids today, they want a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, and they don't have anything else to go with it.
Yeah.
I struggle with looking at where Major League Baseball is, because, like, my son he was throwing 87 in college, and nobody even looked at him because he had a great year, but he didn't throw hard enough. I mean, Greg Maddux didn't throw any more than 88 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, he was probably the greatest pitcher I've ever seen. But in today's generation, they wouldn't even look at him because he didn't throw hard enough.
Yeah. So what advice do you have to give to the athletes that can't throw hard enough? Your son, what do you tell your son every day?
Well, I mean, do the things you can to maximize your velocity in a good way. And the first thing that they can do is properly get your arm in shape. I tell parents, I go, listen, I'm not against kids throwing curveballs at 8 years old. I was throwing a curveball at 8 years old, but I only played 2 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And then basketball season came around, and then football and soccer. And then we came back around and picked our gloves back up and got our arms back in shape, and then started throwing curveballs again. That's what gives curveballs and sliders a bad name, because I mean, they're playing every weekend. I mean, probably 11 months out of the year. That's why Tommy John surgeries are skyrocketing, and I don't see it stopping either. Just because parents are looking out there, and they're seeing the salaries that their son can make, and
Mhm.
they're like, if we miss this weekend, we're gonna fall behind.
Yeah.
And I say, I go, if your son's good enough, he don't have to play year round. Just let him play his high school season, and maybe a little bit of summer to let somebody see him. And
Balance it out type of thing.
yeah, I mean, year round baseball is a tragedy.
Yeah. I
We
played
played
year-round soccer my whole life.
Well. I mean, that's different. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's different.
you're
Yeah.
yeah, you're not killing your shoulder and your
You're not
elbow.
constantly throwing, yeah, you're not constantly doing that
I mean,
motion.
I mean, I mean, exercise is just. I mean,
Good.
I tell all kids growing up, I mean, the quicker you can play soccer, the better all around athlete you'll be, because I think soccer makes you a better everything that you're gonna do.
Definitely shapes you to be a strong person.
Yeah, it does. I love soccer.
I love soccer too.
And my advice that I always give to any kid or any parent that wants to make it to the major leagues, don't make that your goal.
Don't make that
I
your
mean,
goal.
I mean, you can dream about it, but don't make it your goal. Parents are like, I mean, you need to set goals. I go, don't set goals. Once you play professional baseball, it's hard enough. The stress is so much and so high, and you play every single day. It's not
Yeah.
like college where you play 5 games in a weekend and then maybe one on Tuesday night. You're playing every day.
Yeah.
If you put so much pressure on making it to the major leagues and you go 0 for 4, you're like, man. And then you're like, man, I can't do that again. And then you go 0 for 4 again. And
Yeah.
now less than 1% of every player that puts on makes that their goal, never make it. When you look at the percentages of kids that make it to the major leagues, and when you see less than 1%, that's the hardest job in the world. But
Yeah.
once you get there, it's the best job.
How did you deal with that pressure? Reflecting on yourself when you're in the minor leagues, how did you make yourself have a strong mindset?
I never thought in a million years that I was going to play in the major leagues, so I never thought about it. I was getting paid to play baseball, and I told myself, they're not going to send me home because I'm not giving it 110%, and I'm going to have the best time of my life doing it as long as it lasts. And I
Love
mean,
to
every
hear
year, I had great fun times, made some great friends, and had a blast doing it. The fun went away when my AAA coach said, "You just got called up to the major leagues." I'm thinking, oh,
that.
and it's a different ball game when you walk out of that dugout onto that mound, and there's 45,000 people yelling at you.
That's crazy.
It is. It is. I mean, you try to explain how stressful that can be, and people just don't realize it. Just like I'm telling you, when you're at your job,
Yeah.
sitting behind. I mean, I'm not saying you sit behind a desk, but
No.
if somebody's sitting behind a desk and they're doing their job, and I'm sitting here in front of your desk going, "You're a loser. I'm gonna kick you." I mean, just screaming at you for 2 hours. What kind of job does that mean?
Yeah.
You're gonna be effective?
No.
But it's okay for a fan to pay their money, sit behind a dugout, and dog cuss me for 2 hours for me to do my job. And if I fail, I'm on Sports Center, and everybody in the whole world's gonna see it.
Yeah.
If somebody else fails behind their job at McDonald's or whatever, nobody's gonna know about it.
No one sees it.
The hardest job in the world is being a professional athlete.
What was the benefit of playing for multiple teams, you would say?
I don't think anybody ever plans on playing for more than one team.
Yeah.
And when I got traded from the Reds to the Marlins, I felt defeated because I'm thinking, man, the Reds didn't want me anymore. But when I look back at it, I've played for 9 organizations, 7 teams in the major leagues, and now I've made contacts with so many organizations that, I mean, I can call the Boston Red Sox and if I needed anything, and I'd probably get it. I'd call the Florida Marlins or the San Diego Padres, or I played with so many organizations that I've made a lot of good contacts, and it's really worked out for me. But as I was doing it, going from team to team to team, I'm thinking, man, I thought it was like a failure, but
Yeah.
God had
Wow.
other dies.
Yeah, you definitely grow. I went to 3 colleges. I had 3 soccer teams, so I know what it's like to constantly hop from team to team.
Oh yeah,
It makes you grow.
yeah, yeah. It sure did.
When someone throws words of discouragement in your path, how do you handle that? What do you tell them?
If I get to sit down with somebody that's yelling at me, That's what I tell them. I go, and Tom Browning said it best. My very first year in the major leagues, we were like in Pittsburgh, and these guys were just wearing me out. After about the fourth inning, he stood up and turned around. And he goes, anybody yell and scream at you when you're flipping hamburgers at McDonald's? And he kind of sit back. He goes, let him go. I mean, lighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
And they all start dying laughing. And I go, but that's the case. There's nobody screaming and dog cussing you and making fun of your mama. It's hard. But once they realize that this is my job, and there's not, I mean, what I told them, I go, I'm going to follow you to your job tomorrow, and I'm just going to yell at you for 4 hours. And I mean, once they realize that, they kind of lighten up. But I always say, I go, I wish more fans were like the Chicago Cubs fans, because they know how to get on somebody and make it fun. Because they get on to me all the time, and I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Because they know how to do it. And I mean, that's the fun part of baseball is learning how to rag somebody in a good way.
So for all the young baseball players that you're going to be coaching, what's one thing you want them to know about you?
It's just something I can't keep in, that I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and my number one goal is to help build them up for the future, in whatever. It might not be baseball, but it's life, and that's my number one goal. And then secondly, on the field, I want them to be the best baseball player that they can be. What I've seen in our today's society is, I do a lot of jail ministry, and when I walk into the jail and I tell them that I played for professional baseball for the New York Yankees, Boston Red Sox, Atlanta Braves, and every one of them is like, I mean, they want to listen to what I got to say. And then I go, I got a little baseball card. If you guys give me 10 minutes, I'll give everybody one. And they're fighting for a seat. And these are I mean, big guys with tattoos all over their body, and they want one of those cards.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I tell, especially baseball players. I mean, play your career however long it will be, that when you tell somebody that what you've done, they want to listen to you. And then now you can tell them your message.
If you could speak to yourself as a little kid, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Don't listen to the world. We're living in a bad time, and I hear people all the time, if I could do it over again, and I'm thinking, I don't want to do it over again. I wouldn't want to start over. I would tell myself at an early age, study the Bible. Don't take preacher's word for it. To me, that's the number one advice I would tell myself, because when you're studying the Bible and living the Bible and being obedient to the Bible, everything else will just fall right into place.
You are definitely a role model to all baseball players around the world, and hopefully they'll follow your footsteps and look up to you and take your advice.
Yeah, I do my Bible study on Facebook every morning, and I was out in California a few years ago, and I met somebody, and then I gave one of my testimony cards, and they're like, "You're Chris Hammond? We're friends on Facebook. I read your stuff every morning, and thank you." And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. So that's what I tell kids. I go, there's somebody following you around. What are they seeing? What are they seeing? I mean, when there's nobody around, and you're by yourself, especially with how bad this phone is.
Yes.
I mean, it can ruin your life.
Bringing you nothing but a bill.
Yes, and a lot more if you allow it. And that's what I said. I got to tell them. I go when you're by yourself, and there's people watching you. What do they see? And that's a really hard lesson for somebody for me to tell them, because it's a big challenge.
Yes, I agree. Well, thank you for your time today.
Anytime, anytime. I love talking baseball. I love talking life.
I
But
do.
most importantly, I love talking the Bible.